Literally is the most redundant word in the English language. Fact. Okay, let's start at the start. So you're going about your business in the world and somebody says in your vicinity, I was literally climbing the walls. And then inside of your head you go, were you climbing a wall? Were you climbing several walls? Were you actually doing that? Literally? I mean, that must have been quite an unpleasant experience for you to have to climb a sheer face of something. Or you're going about your business in the world and someone says, I was literally just walking down the street. And then you think, what? I mean, as opposed to allegorically or metaphorically, you were literally, of course you bloody were. You already had a functioning sentence there. You didn't need to add anything else to it. There was the sentence. I was walking down the street. That was it. That's all you needed. Why have you done this?
I can't believe you've done this.
So what does literally mean then? Etymology Online tells us that literally comes from literalis, which is probably a word I'm saying wrong, which is from Latin, which, well, I mean, it's the root word of things like letter or literature and all of those other wordy words that, I mean, that's a sentence that I've just said. Its original sense meant pertaining to alphabetic letters, which apparently alphabetic is a word now. I mean, I hadn't heard of it. I guess it's a word. Now that sense, the one that I've just said involving the word alphabetic, goes back to the 14th century. It wasn't until 1590 when the word literal meant something which was actually something. Do you know what I mean? What I mean by that is verbally exact. See what I did there? Haha. No, I didn't do that on purpose. I just did that very badly. There is a third sense, which is being literal minded, which comes up in the 18th century, but I'm not really sure what that one means. I mean, is that, if you're literal, it seems to be some kind of insult, but I don't understand how. I suppose there's that character in Guardians of the Galaxy where the whole joke is that he sees everything literally and then he doesn't understand metaphor, or because that's the joke. Actually, I really like that film. I think the Guardians of the Galaxy films are easily the best of the Marvel films. What's that got to do with anything, though? I don't know. Let's carry on with the video, yeah? Our old lexical companion, the old English Oxford Compact Dick, says that, taking words in their usual or primary sense without metaphor or allegory. Allegory. So that's it then. Grammar bellends unite. We win again. Except if you carry on reading through the entry, you'll find that it says number 5, colloque, which means colloquialism, and disp, which means disputed, so called with some exaggeration or using a metaphor. A literal avalanche of mail is the example. Did any of that make sense? So even though I read that very poorly and not emphasising the proper words, it seems that the dictionary actually agrees that using the word literally as an emphasis or an intensifier is legit. Although, of course, they stuck a catty little disputed thing in there, which says that some people are still arguing about it. So what's going on here then? Well, if you look up online, you'll find that there's quite a good BBC article called what's it called? Why is literally such a troublesome word? Contained within this article is, well, a reference to a professor of English language, so an actual authority in the area. Prof. Clive Upton from Leeds University says that using literally as hyperbole or an intensifier actually goes quite far back. The first recorded use as an intensifier goes back to 1769. With Mark Twain using it in a book that he wrote called Tom Sawyer. That was all the way back in 1876, where Mark wrote that Tom was literally rolling in wealth. That seems pretty legit to me. There is another angle to this though, which is the comedic angle. Now I remember when I lived in Stroud as a teen, which is a place in the world, there was a certain bunch of us that all worked in Tesco, which was the local supermarket, the big one, the one where everyone went to, and we all worked there, and we used to use the word actually quite a lot. Here's an example sentence. He was actually sick on himself. Now we all found that super funny for about 2 years, maybe some more time than that as well. In fact, if I cross paths with any of that group anymore, it still gets used in the sentence, and often it's completely redundant now, so largely it's just passed into our sort of culture that we gave each other, but it still elicits a wry grin, which I submit to you is the theory behind why grannies sit on buses laughing their faces off at each other. It's not just a medication, it's because they have a whole life of shared jokes together, which we don't get. So that's it then. Grammar bellends are being sticks in the ice cream, or that's how that saying goes. Welly well, my prescriptivist grammar people friends. You're gonna need to get off your high giraffes, your high horses, like I've just had to through doing all the research to this video, because there are several other words that we're misusing. That grammar giraffes horses thing definitely looked better when I wrote it. The first one is really. So if you're using really as an intensifier, by which I mean a word that gives your sentence force or power, a bit like sometimes swearing, or the bit like we use the word literally, then you're doing it wrong, I'm afraid, because really actually means in reality. It's basically the same thing. It's the same for the word quite, which actually means absolutely or completely. I think most people, certainly I do, use it to mean something which is partial or not quite complete. You know, something not quite there. Hang on. Bloody heck, I've been using so many words wrongly for a very long time. I'm not even sure that wrongly is a word either. Now, those examples came from Mark Forsyth in the aforementioned BBC article, which were probably pulled from this book here, which I wish it had an index, because then I'd be able to find where those words are. Thank you, Mark, if that's your actual real name, which it is, because it says on the book, and also it says it in other places. It's not a nom de plume, so just maybe stick an index in your book, etymologicon, which is a really hard word to say. I'd be really grateful, thank you. If you liked this video, maybe give it a like if you've made it this far, or give me a subscribe, or maybe don't. Maybe just get on with your life, or go and eat some ice cream, or don't have a cigarette. I'm not recommending that, or drink. I'm not recommending that either. Bye then.